Welcome to Decades of Horror, the classic era.
Hang on there. Hang on, me beauties. There's nothing to be scared of, nothing to be afeared of. Mother of God, it's a corpse! Cool, I thought you were a dead one.
This is episode 137, recorded October 22nd, 2022.
Gruesome Magazine.
All righty. I could see you doing that when I saw Michael Ripper say those lines. My name is Jeff Mohr. On this podcast, we cover the good, the bad, maybe even the ugly horror films released since the beginning of time through 1969. In each episode, we'll discuss the monsters, spirits, psychos, and villains that have haunted movie-going audiences since the dawn of film history.
I love it.
Were you listening, Chad? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Decades of Horror partners with Play Now Media on 3 of their channels: the classic sci-fi movie channel, the classic horror movie channel, and the Wicked Horror TV channel. They all carry our episodes. They're a little behind. We had some problems, and now they're catching up. So hopefully by the end of January or February, they'll be putting out the same ones that we're putting out.
Us have problems? Pish.
Communications, you know. It's not problems on their end. That's me. So anyway, yeah, you can check those out. There's a lot of good movies on there. That's what I do every night. I fan through there and look for a really old movie I never even heard of and watch it. So you can get that on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, online website, and other OTT platforms. And it's a little bit like Tubi in that there's a high percentage of their content that you can watch with ads, or if you subscribe and pay, you can get the premium content plus get rid of those ads. So anyway, that's that.
They've got
Also,
lots of good stuff on there. Stuff that's hard to find too.
They do. And there's usually a serial on there too, at least one serial on each one. Also, I just want to remind people to subscribe to our Gruesome Magazine YouTube channel and or to the podcast, whatever your trips your trigger. Leave comments, share with your friends, etc. We appreciate that. With me this week are my incredible co-hosts. Chad Hunt, co-host on Decades of Horror, the 1970s and the 1980s, film producer and director with Wreak Havoc Productions, and a comic book artist and writer. Used to do some Wolverine, correct?
Wow.
I can't hear you, Chad. You're muted. Let's just keep it that way.
Can you now?
Yes.
Okay, then.
How you doing?
I'm good. Feeling a little batty.
A little batty.
I thought I'd say that before Daphne did.
Oh, what else do I got?
Now you got to think of something. Oh, yeah. All right. Also with us is Daphne, the awesome, stupendous, and likable as hell. How you doing, Daphne?
I'm doing great. It's always nice to see you guys, and especially our special guests. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited, and I'm gonna pull these in because just to make sure people know who I'm talking about here. Guesting with us this episode are Dick Klemensen, I would call you the publisher, owner, editor of Little Shoppe of Horrors. Does that fit? There's probably more than that. I'm shorting you. Little Shoppe of Horrors, the Journal of British Horror Films, and he's being nice to be here. He's taken a little break. First off, if you haven't seen Little Shoppe of Horrors, and where did I do with all my graphics here? That's the latest issue.
Wow.
On the Crawling Eye, also known as the Cronenberg Terror.
Mm-hmm.
Across the pond.
You gotta have
what's that?
You gotta have a crawling eye in your life.
You do. And this is what he's working on right now. A book called Witches, Bitches, and Banshees. The British Films of American International Pictures, which is, I can't wait for that.
Look at that cover. That is so awesome.
By a British artist named Paul Watts, who's worked with us for quite some time.
Nice, nice.
By juggling his little girl on his knee.
Well, and you know, if you watched, Dick joined us for the Hammer version of Dracula about a year ago, and if you did, then you knew that he also did commentary for, or historical pieces, I guess, called The Men Who Made Hammer for a bunch of Scream Factory Blu-rays. And I know there's one of these you didn't do. I forget which one it is.
I didn't do Evil Frankenstein because I knew Freddie Francis, but not really enough.
Okay. So on this one, on the Shoppe Factory version of Brides of Dracula, there is about an hour on Terence Fisher and another good 15, 16 minutes on Asher, the cinematographer.
Very
good
cool
stuff. And here's the other ones, Not the Evil of Frankenstein, and you do the commentary for The Lost Continent. So this is I love having you guys here, but we also have another guest host up, Al Ucard. May I call you Al?
You may.
The alter
that name's
ego,
still not fooling anybody.
Yeah, the alter ego of Alistair Hughes, who has been on before with The Curse of the Werewolf, correct?
Yes.
And also he does some podcasts with Steve Turek on the Diecast podcast, Hammerama, right? You do.
That's right. Steve is my pod wife, and we've just completed our Halloween episode, which should be out soon. And he was on just recently speaking with you guys. Yeah.
He joined us for Horrors of the Black Museum, which actually there's a very slight connection there for this. But anyway, and Al put out this book, Infogothic. Yay.
Awesome book.
An unauthorized graphic guide to Hammer horror. Al is a illustrator, writer, and a graphic artist, and every so often he posts up stuff that he worked on. You've done children's books, things for the local newspaper, I believe.
He's also a big-time artist for Little Shoppe of Horrors, too.
Absolutely.
And he does. Here's the inside back cover for The Stranglers of Bombay.
In Stranglescope. Stranglescope.
Stranglescope, that's right.
Stranglescope.
And for The Witches. It's good stuff. It's always looking forward to seeing your things, Al. All right. So our topic, and this is Dick's picked this. I was thinking of when he had talked about like the first horror movie he'd seen and his favorite, and I threw out a couple options. I should have just let him pick one, but this is what he chose: The Brides of Dracula from 1960. And how do you pronounce that young lady's name, that actress?
Andre Melly.
Andre Melly? Okay. I wasn't sure with the accent over the E. Directed by Terence Fisher, written by Jimmy Sangster, Peter Bryan, Edward Percy, and some uncredited stuff from Anthony Hines, correct?
That's correct.
Filming locations in England, I saw Black Park in Buckinghamshire, Bray Studios in Oakley Court in Berkshire. And I believe Oakley Court's the big mansion, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of across the lawn from Bray Studios.
Okay. And filming dates, January 26th to March 18th, 1960. Release date, June 3rd, 1960 in Memphis, Tennessee, which I don't know. That just seems weird. It's listed as a July 7th, 1960 release in the UK. And this is where it gets really weird. I could find nothing on budget, but box office said $337,000 in the US. And then
budget was about $120,000.
Pardon me?
The budget was about $120,000.
Okay. that was kind of the standard amount then. So, and then, but France had like 1.25 million theater admissions, which I would think would add up. It's interesting reading about these in Little Shoppe of Horrors and on the commentaries, that how some of them do really well in the US and not so good at England, and or maybe the other way around, etc. But anyway, The Brides of Dracula, a synopsis. The vampire hunter Van Helsing returns to Transylvania to destroy handsome bloodsucker Baron Meinster, who has designs on beautiful young schoolteacher Marianne. Okay. And brides is plural, so that, I guess, is one of the brides, right? Okay. Well, let's get to first impressions, and we usually have our guests go first. And especially since you picked this one, Dick. So what's your first comments, first impressions, whatever about?
I'm not sure the first Hammer film I ever saw. I think it was Revenge of Frankenstein, and I'm older than all you people, so I actually saw them in the theaters in the 1950s, early 60s.
Yikes.
But I saw The Brides of Dracula with, I think, the Leech Woman. And it's either summer 60 or 61. I think 61. I was in 8th grade. And I had no idea what a Hammer film is, or these people is. And it just absolutely knocked me on my ass. I thought it was gorgeous. About the same time I saw The Curse of the Werewolf and, not wolves, night creatures. And then I had this rush of Hammer films. I never saw another one until 1969, but I always remember Brides of Dracula.
Yeah. So that's kind of your favorite Hammer film, right?
It's my favorite Hammer film. If I was going to show it to a Hammer film to someone who'd never seen one, I'd show them Horror of Dracula, because a lot's happening. It's a very jumping across tables and staking and flinging vampire women on the floor, and the ending with the crosses. And like Peter Cushing said, it was his idea, even in Brides, to have these really athletic, Errol Flynn type stuff, leaping around and fighting. It worked once in Horror of Dracula, it'll work again in Brides of Dracula. And it was just so incredibly colorful. It was a time of, like, say, Horrors of the Black Museum and Conga and Gorgo and a lot of cheap black and white stuff. But this film, I remembered it to the day I actually discovered it. It's the one that I actually remembered the best.
Yeah.
And it was easy, forget about falling in love with Yvonne Monlar's Marianne. It is much easier to fall in love with Andrew Melly as the cutest vampire of all.
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed.
And that little turned up nose of hers. Hey, I was just entering puberty. It was tough.
All right. Well, let's thank you, Dick. Let's check out from our other guests now. Al, when did you first see this, and what were your first impressions?
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, it's actually going to be slightly more interesting for me to talk about when I first didn't see it. In New Zealand, we have our late night screenings of classic horror films, and these were always on a Sunday night. So consequently, they were called the Sunday Horrors. And these started way back in the early 1980s when I was a teenager. And what actually developed was that it became a weekly ritual that I would have all my friends round to my place. My long-suffering parents would retreat to bed, and we would occupy the living room, and we would just watch a creaky old horror film, whether it was Amicus, SCI-FI, or Hammer. And this sort of became, it was more about the camaraderie than the movie, because we were angsty teenagers, and whatever stresses we were having at school or in our barely existing love lives, we could put it all to one side and just relax and enjoy a wonderful old horror movie. Well, the one week that I couldn't make the Sunday Horrors, my friends held it without me. And the following morning, the Monday morning, they greeted me with something along the lines of, "Oh, best one ever." all those really hot vampire women coming out of their coffins. You had Grand Moff Tarkin and the windmill, and you just missed the best one ever. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, what a bunch of pals you got.
Yeah.
Friends indeed. So consequently, it was several decades until I finally did get to see Brides of Dracula. But it was one of those things where by that stage I had read and heard so much about it that I kind of feel that I'd already seen it. But that didn't prepare me for just how damn good it looks. It's one of the most beautiful looking films I think I've ever seen in my life. I won't go on about it now because no doubt we'll cover that later. But yeah, those are my first experiences of Brides of Dracula.
Okay, thanks, Al. And let's go next to Daphne.
Okay. I've seen it recently, probably like in the last couple of years, but I know I've seen it before. Probably like in my early 20s. But for a long period of time, I got it confused with Kiss of the Vampire. So I just kind of messed up the storylines in my head. And I had a Kiss of the Vampire on VHS. And so I think Brides just kind of became this mix with Kiss the Vampire. So when I saw it again a couple of years ago, I was like, oh yeah. And then I hadn't seen it since then. So I still kind of wasn't super clear on it. So it was like watching it for the first time and looking at it with closer eyes for the podcast. And I really like it. I think it's great. I am so in love with Peter Cushing, especially the suits that he wears in this movie, his outfits, and how he has like 3 perfectly tailored suits and 2 beautiful coats, 2 piles of shirts, and they all fit in this teeny little leather suitcase that he brought in with him on the stagecoach. But yeah, and the costumes and the story. Yeah, there's so many scenes that you can, just pop up in your head. It's got a crazy witch-like lady who's just over the top in some scenes, and it's a wonderful, wonderful movie. I love it.
Yeah. That's a good description. Chad, how about you? Grandpa's couch or some other time? Was that
Grandpa's couch? Dracula, when I used to say Dracula. I've seen this quite a few times over the years, and I remember one of the first times I saw it, I remember thinking, I want to marry Andre Melly when I grow up, because I saw her picture in not Fangoria, but Famous Monsters at one time, and I just went, now that's a Bride of Dracula. I mean, she really she looks scary and beautiful at the same time in that. And this is a film that when I saw it as a younger fellow, I was kind of disappointed because it didn't have Christopher Lee in it. But this was David Peel was his name. Did a great job as the vampire, and it's a really, really stylish movie that sort of focuses on Van Helsing more than anyone, which I really, really enjoyed, because from the first time I saw Peter Cushing as Van Helsing in Horror of Dracula, I just fell in love with him too. I wanted to marry him too when I got older, I think. But I just love him as Van Helsing, and this sort of showcases his whole character right there. The sets were beautiful. It's very well acted. It had a great cast, especially the couple that owned the pub there. I enjoyed them quite a bit, and the final part of it when he turned the windmill blades so they made a cross, and that's what destroyed the vampire at the end was just, I just thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life, you know. And so, yeah, this is one I've always loved and still love to this day. I could watch it 20 times a year and never get tired of it.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Yeah, it is. It's really good. And this is one of my confessions I have to make about condemnation prior to investigation. I looked at that and saw that blonde. I mean, the title is Brides of Dracula, so I'm assuming this guy is Dracula on the cover, a blonde Dracula. I turned my nose up and didn't pay any attention to it for a long time.
He was such a snob.
I am. And when I finally watched it, come to find out, even though it's called The Brides of Dracula, there's no Dracula in the movie. Anyway, but this is great, and he does a great job. He's really. I know he left acting shortly after this. Had another successful career, but he was a pretty good actor. It's too bad he didn't get a few more roles to show that. Love the sets. Just unbelievable. The wardrobes. I loved, you talked about Cushing and his suits, Daphne. I was digging his ties.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I used to have this, like around 1970. I had this brown knit tie, you know, that was like, and he had several colors of them. You know, he had like a dark red one and a blue one, and then that shirt with the little stripe around the collar. It just was. He just looked cool.
He is sharp.
He was so good, so good. And the bareness. I mean, everything, and the music too, which was not a usual Hammer composer, but the music worked really well as well. So I think we should go on from there, and let's take a look at some posters. This is the one. I don't know if that's. I think these are, well, the bottom one. I don't know. Was there separate posters for U.S. and U.K.?
Generally, yeah, they were separate. Those look like U.S.
Yeah, I think they are. And that's kind of a weird color. And I found another version of that top one, even greener. So I don't know. You know, if
the bottom was probably a lobby card or something.
Oh, could well be.
I was kind of surprised when I saw those because there's so much color in the movie. I was just a little surprised with the posters.
I know.
When I first saw
well, a lot of times the artists didn't even see the film. They didn't have any. They would do the artwork even before the film was out. And I've often got the idea that's what happened to Brides of Dracula in America. That whoever designed it hadn't actually seen it.
Yeah.
I think that pose that Baron Meinster is striking, isn't that from a still of Christopher Lee?
It looks like it.
Sure looks like
it.
Certainly does.
And the way they keep his face in shadow, you really can't tell that it's not Christopher Lee. So I'm sure they sort of banked on that to get some people.
The top one here, I think, is the UK poster or a UK poster or lobby card. And I like how there's like 5 Brides of Dracula fading into the background instead of 2.
Yeah.
But I like that one. We're getting a little
who
more
knows
color.
How many there could have?
You know, off into the distance. The one on the bottom was one Dick, you said, was by an artist known as Brooks.
Yeah, his name is David Brooks. Works with. He's in a lot of issues with Alistair. Is in a little shop. Very good British artist.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
In fact, I was
get into. Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
you were just talking.
I was wrong with what I was going to say. I thought Alistair was with him on the front cover, inside front, and I realized it was Paul Watt. So ignore me.
Well, I love that poster that he did. It really captured The movie.
Yeah, it's got the
Yeah.
it's got the blues and the reds and the and the main. This is French, and apparently in France, vampires can't get married, so these were the mistresses of Dracula.
Hey, not the mattresses of Dracula? Darn.
Yeah. Well, each coffin comes complete with its own mattress.
What are all these stains?
But I kind of like that one. That's got some
It is nice.
fashion to it. And then a couple more French. The top one's a little more traditional.
Top one is Belgium, and I used to have a number of those. That's a cool culture.
Oh, that's right. We have figured out, Daphne, I think, that when they're Belgian, there's a French title and then a Belgian title at the bottom.
Well, and there may be some because the northern part of Belgium is Flemish or Dutch, so sometimes there's Dutch and sometimes there's French. But
I missed that.
I don't know how close to the close to the actual language of or if they're mixed a little bit, but.
And then these I'm telling you, I put these titles into Google Translate and it said they were Corsican. Now, why Corsica would have its own posters, two different ones, but they're interesting. I like them.
I haven't seen that one before.
The bottom poster is a knockout.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Those are great.
And then, yes, it does kind of look like he's in the middle of a move there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Phantom of the Paradise going on.
Yeah. The Brides of Dracula at Studio 54, whatever.
And if you know me, you know I got to do the German ones too. So,
nice.
Which are much darker, right? It seems.
They really captured the Baron, though, in those the kind of the mystery.
It's kind of interesting. The tall image of the Baron. Also, you see that generic shot in a lot of them. It's a generic vampire. Then they actually have some stuff that look like the characters from the film.
It is interesting that maybe they're all by the same person, drawing different variations and waiting to see which one they like. But I don't know exactly how that works. But it does seem like the Baron figure could have been drawn. Was by the same person. All right. So you may have thought that I forgot, but I didn't. It's now time for taglines with Chad.
Dang it. And you notice I didn't remind you that, hey, we're going to do taglines?
No, I did notice that.
Okay.
I thought the wedding march was fitting for the Brides of Dracula. I don't know.
It was perfect.
So,
it's only getting better and better, Jeff.
It is, isn't it?
Okay. The taglines for the Brides of Dracula are as follows. He turned innocent beauty into unspeakable horror.
They were still pretty.
They were still pretty, yeah.
They were still pretty. I don't know about unspeakable.
Unspeakable? No, I'd ask them out for a date.
Yeah. You should have seen me on the TV. A school for girls falls prey to his fiendish desires. Well, not all of them.
That sounds like an Argento movie or something.
I know. It's like, that's just like, come on in.
All right. In the privacy of a girls' school, he sought his prey, turning innocent beauty into a thing of unspeakable horror. He's into this unspeakable horror.
Unspeakable.
Okay.
We couldn't speak about it.
The most evil, bloodlusting non-Dracula of all. And those are your taglines for the Brides of Dracula, everybody.
Well, you think about 1960 when it came out, there'd only been the one Dracula film that mattered, so maybe
right.
It made a difference that there wasn't Dracula in it.
Yeah.
Well,
unspeakable.
That's been taglines for Chad.
I hope that's not supposed to be me.
Ooh, it's on repeat.
It's for fun. No, I hit it twice. My favorite.
Once is enough.
We're professional here, folks. By the way, Dick, this is the third movie with Dracula in the title that we've done in our last 6 episodes. We did Son of Dracula, and with Lon Chaney Jr., and then we did The Return of Dracula with Francis Lederer last week. So this is our like Dracula October, I guess.
Dractober.
All righty. Well, what do we do now? All right, we did first impressions. So
show's over now. Show's over.
Show's done. All right, let's talk about. Oh my goodness. Well, if you have any scenes you want to talk about or anything, just in general, I can pop up pictures.
My favorite scene in the whole film is when
Go, Dick.
You got Cushing. He's come in. He's looking at the chains. And if you ever look at the top of the screen, there's one little cobweb just floating back. And in the background, you see Martina Hunt, almost like deep focus, like something from, she's coming down the steps. It always reminds me It always reminds me of Greg Tolan and Citizen Kane. And the way she just comes into the picture from the background. And that always just knocked me out. And then watching it again, I watched a little bitty stupid piece of cobweb that's floating by his head.
Yes. Well, it is. It's a great shot. Because it's like a threaded angle, you know, to see past Cushing right up through the door, right up the stairway, and you see her come down the stairway.
And they really take the time with the scene with him looking around and down at the chains, and so you're just kind of just waiting, and then something.
Because when he first enters that windmill, I mean, it's a very innocuous scene, but if you look at the color and the lighting and the detail in those shots, honestly, it's like a painting by an old Dutch master. It's just so exquisitely filmed. And I actually found myself, and the same happens with the Horror of Dracula as well, because I've seen it so many times, I actually find my eye kind of straying around the background rather than what's happening in the foreground, because it's just so exquisite, isn't it?
I find myself doing that too, because when you notice, well, it doesn't overpowering. They do a great job with the production design because it looks so great, but it's like once you notice it, I am just sucked in, like, well, what? Oh my God, they put that in there, and who thought to do that? And and there's so much of that in this movie, and it feels totally appropriate for each scene, like the opulence in the home, the kind of dirtiness on the road. But I just think, wow, they had that kind of detail in it. It just it blows my mind.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you start off with I think it's the opening scene where you're in the coach going through the muddy, swaying and stuff, and
that's the roughest coach ride I've ever seen.
Oh, cow.
If you've ever seen the suspension on those coaches, I think they were all rough coach rides.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, if they had to put handles in like pretty much anywhere your arms could reach to hang on to it, probably looked like it was pretty standard.
She's like, "Can you slow down?" He's like, rah, 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 rah. She's like, "Okay." And she just starts hanging onto the rope.
I was shocked with how little those are too. When we went to, I can't tell you how many Westerns I watched, but I went to Tombstone and there was an actual stagecoach there. Oh my God. that they put 6 people in those things. Those things are little. I mean, they're just not. People were smaller then, I think, in general. But,
yeah. You ever find when you're looking at these Hammer films, you've seen so many Hammer films, and you're looking at the background, but you find say, okay, that was the chair, that was the kiss of the. Oh, I remember that from Horror Dracula. They didn't waste anything. They went to the scene dock, they brought it, they threw it in the background. You would see these films 50 times.
The cushion in that chair looks a little frumpy. I wonder how long they've been using that.
Well, the bed for Marianne's the same bed that Jonathan Harker was in Horror Dracula.
Yes. and I recognized the table, Dick, because I'd actually drawn an illustration for you where I had to painstakingly try and work out all of the detail that was on that table. So you tend to recognize these things after you.
Yeah, I'll bet.
You've drawn them.
I'll bet. Well, the whole inside of it, I don't know what you call it, like the Great Hall inside the chateau or whatever it was. God, those huge carvings hanging out. Maybe that was on the front of the building. God, it was crazy. It was
Bernard Robinson's wife, Margaret Robinson, did those. Although I don't think they were married at the time. I think she was Margaret Carter, but they married shortly after that. She had a lot of trouble doing it because the men didn't like her being in the shop. They're very much prejudiced against women technicians.
Yeah. And
Bernard would have to lay down the law to quit bugging her, let her do her job. And like Alistair said, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, you had a story on one of your commentaries, I think, Dick, where you were talking about they told somebody, don't lean on that. It's paper mache.
Andrew Nelly would wander up in the sets, like at lunchtime, just looking at them because they're beautiful. And she went up the top, went to lean on the railing. Somebody else, don't lean on them. That's paper mache. They'll fall on your head.
They make them, it looks so.
Yeah, the craftsmanship.
I was just,
amazing.
I asked someone once, did they look as good in person as they did on film? After you had people like said, yeah, they really did. I'd walk around the Gorgon with my mouth hanging open.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't think people appreciate set designers or stage design, as much when you see how much work goes into it. It's and how
they didn't create anything now. CGI. It's hard to remember. This is all done, like say, by craftsmen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's no spare space. As big as that room is, there's something occupying or a reason for everything. Whether it's a portrait on the wall or a lamp or a writing desk or something, there's always, it never looks sparse and it never looks overcrowded.
That was sort of a hallmark of Hammer, though. I mean, the craftsmanship to the sets and the detail of all the sets was just, and the color just drew you into it, and made you believe the world was real. That world was real.
And also, this is the era of parkour Cushing. And you've got to have for him to climb up and swing off. And
I expected to have pow, bam, like in the Batman show. I was like, he's swinging around like Batman.
Well, just to show the beauty, like say, of the sets. When Marianne is going to run up the stairs and they're shooting from the top of the staircase and shooting down. And I looked, I said, damn, that's beautiful. We ran an article about Jackass written by David J. Miller. The guy is a cinematographer. He's won Emmy Awards. He's done tons of television films. And stuff like that just knocks him off because he can't do that. With digital filming and the lights, those days are gone. Everything is kind of like, say, everything's bland. Everything's brown. There's no brightness to anything.
Right.
Well, and I think the thing that often gets my attention when I'm watching Hammer is, and in a particularly like a movie like this where there's big class differences. So you have like the Baron, the house, and then you have the little town, and then you have kind of, you just see the different, but each one is beautiful. Each one seems so natural and realistic for that. So even the scenes outside in in the dirt or in the woods, it looks great. Or in the inn or something. And even, you don't even have to go look for like these super opulent sets, just the beauty and the simple ones. They all just seem natural and so totally into the story. And that's just, I mean, when you watch that, you forget about everything. And I think that's just because they must have, I don't know, maybe I'm romanticizing it, but I feel like I just see so much love or like care or maybe just craftsmanship in it that just makes it so much more enjoyable to watch.
Well, they did one film a year. It was the same people during that period from like 56 through 62, 63. And you went to work every day with friends. You had Bernard Robinson, the same art directors, the same people in the shops.
The one that's, just to interrupt for a second, the one that's different, Malcolm Williamson was wrote the music for this one. Normally it was James Bernard, right? But
like I said, Daphne said, it was friends working there. These people, most of them been in the film industry since the 30s. And they worked at the big studios. They really knew their jobs. They were craftsmen. They were journeyman craftsmen. I think the word journeyman is thrown around incorrectly. To me, that is a compliment. It means you know what you're doing.
It's like workman-like, I think.
My hero.
The Cush.
What a guy. Alistair, if I ever have enough money, I'm going to ask if I can get you to make an illustration of parkour Cushing. I think that character is awesome.
Did you see the one scene where he vaulted over the porch? It was like a 15-foot drop, and he just lands like...
Aaron Fisher had a heart attack. Said, don't do that. He says, that's the last scene in the film. That's Louis Hayward. I
saw him drop through the air, and I thought, surely they're going to cut away. They're going to cut to a stuntman, but no, it was him.
Oh, he was unexpected.
If I was to do that now, I'd be 6 inches shorter.
I know. Well, and when he's coming back to the inn, he's riding his coach, and he just like steps off the coach while it's still moving. He just like keeps going and
smooth move,
and just kind of waves like this happens all the time. That's just how he gets out of the car. I was like, what?
Well, this was part of their fight, when David Peel is choking him.
You've got the Cushing tongue.
Yes, wrestling around the ground. Yeah, that was I felt for him there. That was
Cushing claimed he
I
had a
hope
lot
that
to
was
do with
acting.
staging that too.
He had what?
He had a lot to do with staging it. It was his idea.
He
helped choreograph it.
I could believe
Look how iconic and just badass he looks in that first picture.
I know, the one on top.
And when he sweeps the cross across him, he doesn't do that. He sweeps it across him. So when he picks up the curtains to throw over the Baroness.
Oh, yes.
Wings it. Great.
One of the things I noticed that I hadn't seen before is he's very everything he does is very intentional. So like when he's holding the cross up and the Baron throws that big candelabra at him and knocks it over, and then they have a quick cut of Van Helsing or Cushing, and you see his eyes dart around the room, and then he sees something and boom, he heads over there. So you're like, I mean, you could see his mind working, looking for options. What do we do next? Even though it's in the script and they already know what he's going to do. It's just, I love that.
As if he's seeing it for the very first time. Could I just say something else about Cushing just before we move on? There was a scene that struck me in this film. Now, in Horror of Dracula, I think we can pretty much agree that the Undertaker, Miles Malleson, pretty much steals that scene, and I know that you guys described it in some length when you covered that film. In this film, I feel that Malleson steals it, but Cushing steals it back just by doubling down on his character. Cushing is so steely and so authoritative that it's as if Mallison's character realizes that he's being a little bit of an idiot, and he kind of quietens down, and Cushing seems to take the scene back, or at least that was the impression I got.
It's very strange because Dr. Tobler, the Mallison's character, is always going, "Oh, but of course you'll let me charge for that, won't you?"
Yeah.
He's going to add every fee he can onto it, and he's going to be the one that does it. And Cushing just totally and completely ignores him. Yeah, he doesn't go, okay. He just walks away.
Well, and he almost has this smile on his face, like, I don't want to say condescending, because it wasn't condescending. It was more of just like, that's not important to me. This isn't important to me. I know what's really going on with the vampires. And, it's almost like he's just kind of tolerating this doctor around. And I noticed that too. I was like, whoa, he's really, that's really a Van Helsing kind of thing that I could imagine of him just kind of like, okay.
Did you watch it?
Guys don't know what's going on.
They're in the girls' school, and he's in the background fiddling with the drinks, and he's everything, trying to draw the attention to himself. Can I have a drink of that?
There's this great scene that I hadn't even noticed before, and it's obviously intentional because they lined it up perfectly, where Marianne is telling Van Helsing that she's in love, and that he's asking her about it, and she's telling him that it's the Baron, and he's freaking out and warning her. And you see Mallison, he's in the background, and he's just like eating and drinking.
Yeah, can I have some of this wine?
And I just that's incredible that they let him do that, or let that, that made that part of that. It's
Mallison only appeared in Terence Fisher films for Hammer. He didn't do anything else for Hammer other than Fisher films.
And he does that. Okay, so did everybody watch? We may have all had different versions, but that coat he's wearing, was that purple and red plaid for everybody?
That's what I see in this picture here is what I saw in the film that I watched.
Yeah.
I just was like, wow. That's wow.
I know the costume, the fabric choices in everybody's clothes are amazing.
And there's Cushing in this movie looking dapper.
Oh my
I'd
God,
love to have the suits that David Peel wore.
The
tie, of course. I look like David Peel. Was better.
Before we move on from Miles Mallison, I just wanted to bring up, we've done, this is our fourth movie, I think, with him. So in the top one is The Dead of Night, I believe.
Yeah.
Driving the Hearse, just room for just one more. And the bottom one is looking at the girly pictures in Peeping Tom in the apothecary. And the other one that I forgot about is Queen of Spades. He was in Queen of Spades.
Oh, was he?
Well,
he was. I think he was the guy that he was paying money off to. Yeah.
Oh.
Anyway, you mentioned David Peel. Well, this I think is amazing. When you look at the range there, the top one, he is, that's a handsome dude.
Well, we kind of talked about how, you see in the title has Dracula but there is no Dracula, but that's also something that I liked about this movie. And here they do it by kind of having the Baron seem like a victim here. And you just kind of, I don't know, it kind of makes it a little topsy-turvy. And I feel like there's quite a few things that they do in the movie that is like that. And him going from this transformation, I really appreciate it in the movie. Because, he looks completely a different character there. But you know that underneath he's, the guy at the bottom. So
I was thinking, too, maybe that's why a lot of the posters and stuff had that darker version, because it would have kind of given the story point away. Because when we're first introduced to him, he looks like his crazy mother has him chained in the attic for some reason.
Yeah, right. So you're not expecting expecting it. Yeah,
and it would have kind of gave it away.
Crazy mother. Yeah, his mother has him chained up
Yeah.
And
Yes.
no one can go see him because if they look in his eyes, he will bend them to his will.
I don't know. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the David Lean version of Great Expectations, but Martita Hunt and Frida Jackson are both in that. And Martita Hunt, I think, plays the definitive Ms. Havisham. She's just perfect. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if it was because of that performance that she was cast here, because she's outstanding.
She was very good in it. Yeah.
In Alec Guinness's biography, he talks about her.
Okay.
She scared the shit out of him too.
I bet.
He was quite intimidated in real life.
Yeah, I think somewhere in your issue on that, there was some. You were talking to somebody. I think it was a cameraman that was saying she was formidable.
And she demanded real wine during those scenes.
Not that Valley wine.
Yes.
In the mornings when Yvonne Monlard, they go in to shoot the scene, said, "A little wine, my dear?" Or no, it was the continuity one. Said, "No, I don't think so."
You mentioned Frida Jackson, and hopefully y'all, Daphne and Chad, she's been in another movie we did this year.
She looks familiar, so I'm not surprised to hear that. But I
didn't recognize her when I watched it either. When I was looking through everything. She was the witch in Valley of Gwangi.
Yes.
Oh.
No way.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, she definitely
now.
has that character. She has that old woman, everybody assumes is a witch kind of thing going on there. Yeah.
Well, she sure changes.
Yeah.
Did she go crazy when the guy got let loose, or she seemed so controlled and soft-spoken and like the dutiful servant, and then all of a sudden she turns into this, that rotten mother, it's all her fault.
Right.
I didn't even recognize who was sitting over the grave.
Oh gosh, yeah. With her hair down, and you see the gray streaks and everything.
That's
but
that's
that's part of what I was thinking more about it, as it being not what you would expect, and how they kind of turn stuff on its end, because you hear these things about the horribleness of this house and this family and all the terrible things, but people seem to be controlled. I mean, cold maybe and whatever, but and then you see underneath that, maybe she was his nurse, so she's always kind of been there, right? So she may have already been. She might just have been controlling herself, and I just really, really liked that. I liked that people were not what you expected. Like the Baroness was not what you expected. The story of how I became a vampire, he was just like hanging out with a bunch of debauched friends, and she liked that, and that's kind of what made him a vampire. And I just thought there were so many interesting things going on there, and to see her go from like this really controlled person to just like out of it, this totally crazy. I like that a lot, and that made it more believable to me, even if I wasn't consciously aware of what was happening. Because at first, when I heard her talking, I was like, wow, she is really milking it. What the heck is going on?
Well, she's almost like a female. I'm sorry.
No, I'm done.
I said she's almost like a over the line female version of Renfield from 31 Dracula, because she's cackling, and then she's muttering to herself. When she releases the one bride from the grave.
Would have been cool to see her eat a few bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was watching the scene with, it comes out of the coffin, which is buried an inch below the ground. It's when I first started to really realize, even though I'd read it, that graveyard scene, the Barons, where they keep them chained, and the main hall are all the same set.
Wow.
Yes.
Suddenly you can see the background. And if you look, you can see it really is the same set. They move something out, they put a little foreground piece of that. And that's just a genius to hammer.
Yeah.
It seems to me that if you were expecting somebody to come back as a vampire, you'd bury them deeper than a couple of inches.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You just had to stick her hand up out of the dirt.
It's still an all-time classic Hammer scene though, and although I've read this many times and it's by no means original, you really can see the more you watch it that it is a sort of ghastly parody of midwifery. Where Frida Jackson's character is encouraging her to push, to exert herself, so it's spine chilling actually.
When Van Helsing's walking in the like the corridor or something, and he hears those mutterings out in the outside, that's creepy.
Yeah.
These two at the bottom are like, I love what Greta's done with her hair.
Well, here's our other bride.
Put your hair down, Greta. Okay.
Andre Melly. And at the girls' school above, before she's turned with Frau Lang, Mona Washburn.
When you were mentioning your favorite costumes before, I really did want to mention Gina's red dress.
So beautiful.
In her first scene. Yeah.
So beautiful.
I'm sorry.
Her and Bells of St. Trinian.
Oh, wow.
Say that again.
She's one of the girls in the Bells of St. Trinian. First time I ever saw her.
Right. Yeah.
We kind of skipped over Yvonne Monlauer. She's the lead.
She reminds me of Jane from not Seinfeld, but Frasier a little bit.
Okay.
Jane Leaves or whatever her name is.
Yeah.
But she's kind of clueless, right? Is she under his spell? Is that the deal? Or
nah, she's just stupid.
Well, they changed the script so much. I didn't tell you to kill your mother. Sure, I'll marry you.
Yeah.
Do you, Dick? Do you think that was part of that? Was all the script changes? I know that that's been discussed a lot, but okay.
They put stuff in, they took stuff out, different rewrites. What have people said? If you start following the logic of it, you've lost them anyway. And if you're really into a movie, we're now in an age where you can tear it apart. Back then, if you're in the movie, you ain't noticing.
Right.
So,
well, I usually, or at
least I was.
I'm sort of joking about it, but I have a hard time arguing about the continuity or the logic in horror movies. Yeah. Especially supernatural horror movies. I'm sorry. It's just it happens.
There's no logic to what she does. She's going to marry the Baron. There's just not.
Everybody tells her not to do that. And as always happens, Van Helsing gives everybody very specific forceful instructions on what to do, and nobody does it. Nobody does it.
I just wanted to say, just looking at those two photographs of the actress there, we're talking about the art direction before. There's a scene where Van Helsing finds her in the forest and she's lying there, and he takes out a blanket to wrap around her. But this blanket just happens to be the absolute perfect color, the perfect shade of green. Just the offset, her coloring and her hair color. Everything's just so perfect.
I know, and it's called something like the carriage rug or something. It's just like, and I'm like, what? That's a gorgeous velvet,
Well, they don't put you're not allowed to put your feet on it in the carriage. It's called a carriage rug.
Exactly. It's in case you find somebody on the side.
That's the first thing the guy says, keep your feet off my floor rug.
When the fanboy area, I met her a couple times, and she invited my wife and I to visit her in Paris. And you go, this ain't real. Marianne isn't inviting you to come visit her in Paris. Sadly, we never made it.
That's very cool.
Amazing.
She loved that. Her son was at a convention, and a friend of mine had gone up, and she wasn't there and was saying something. He said, well, that's my mom. She'd love to hear that. And she had dinner with him later.
Oh, my gosh.
And would do the bit where, the toast, when the toast catches on fire.
She did an awesome job.
Yes.
She sort of carried the whole movie for the first half hour or so. You know, she sort of.
Well, and I also like
she did a great job.
I also like that, you know, there's questions about why would she, you know, just kind of go along with this. But I do definitely felt like she, and I don't know if it was the time maybe or what, but, you know, she's traveling on her own to be a teacher. She's staying at these houses. She's just making her own decision to go and see who this person is that's hanging, you know, she's walking around someone else's house who's providing hospitality for her, doing, you know, looking for stuff. And so she's just like, she does what she wants. And so it was kind of like, well, you know, okay, if she wants to marry him, you know, it's like, sure, she would probably just decide, I'm going to do this.
Courtship,
you know?
But every time I watch it, I'm like the dog when you blow a whistle, my hand just goes. What?
So she was in a couple other Hammer films, The Terror of the Tongs and The Bride, and no, that was it. I think that was it.
Same year she did Horrors, excuse me, Circus of Horror, or whatever it was.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring that up because that's the other of the Sadian trilogy of the Anglo amalgamated AIP combos, along with Peeping Tom.
Yeah, we got quite a bit about that in our upcoming book.
Oh,
it
cool.
Was,
very cool.
It was very AIP, cool. And we even found there were continental scenes from that, which basically meant they shot scenes with no tops on. And how I determine if I'm going to publish them, I show it to my wife. And she'll look and say, this is supposed to be sexy? I said, well, it was 60 years ago. You know, give me a break. I know you can see better on TV now, but these are your continental scenes. So the French will look at it.
Oh my gosh, the continental scenes. I love it. That is hilarious.
She was also apparently considered for the part of Domino in Thunderball.
Yes.
Oh wow.
I bet she'd be great.
Yeah, I think so too.
Right?
Yeah.
And France's latest sex kitten.
Yes. I think she could.
Meow.
I
not Greta though.
No, not that.
Before I forget this, Frida Jackson also was one of the Stygian witches in Clash of the Titans.
That's right.
Yes.
Which we did like a couple months ago on 80s. The Witch in Valley of Gwangi. She was in Die Monster Die, which what do you guys call Die Monster Die?
Monster Terror, and she was Boris Karloff's wife in it.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Letitia
also
Whitley.
in our book, we got a lot of great stuff in that.
And she was in the Shadow of the Cat in 1961.
Right. Interesting.
So, yeah, I keep forgetting Die Monster Die was kind of loosely based around The Color Out of Space.
Lovecraft, yeah.
I've got a wonderful photo in the book. It's where Nick Adams is walking up to the wall to go in the house and it says Arkham.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that I don't know, like 3 years ago or something. Chad, we've been doing this almost
longer than I've been alive.
6 years. Coming up on our 6 years. So I just wanted to get those in because these there's a lot of these people that kind of, you know, show up together.
I loved her and the Baroness. I just felt like they did such a great job.
Yeah.
And
well, it's a great sort of conflict where the innkeeper and his wife, they know that the Baroness comes and grabs women to take back from her son, and they disappear. So they're trying like heck to keep her. Oh, you can stay here. You can stay here. Oh, you got to hurry up and leave. You got to hurry up and leave. You know.
It's in real life. Marquita Hunt and Frida Jackson couldn't stand each other. A couple of hands really going at it. Yes.
Wow. I was just going to say it's hard, I guess, for some people coming to this film because you don't have Christopher Lee or Dracula in it. But I think at least initially, the emphasis is on the female characters, even Marianne herself. And I think that's probably necessary because Christopher Lee is such a strong masculine presence that I don't think that would work in his film. But whereas with David Peel being more of a, I can't think of the right word. He's a different sort of male character altogether. It allows the female characters, at least in the first part of the film, to come forward.
So was
it's
this
a little bit more
originally
androgynous? Now that you mention it.
Yes, thank you. That's good. Yeah.
Well, as a matter of fact, yes. And then also the scene where Gina's going after Marianne.
Oh.
Let me hug you. Let me kiss you.
Yeah. Excuse my mind just went blank. No.
I just wanted to ask. Is that our first instance of a sapphic vampiress in Hammer? Because I'd always thought that maybe it was Barbara Shelley in Dracula Prince of Darkness, but watching Brides of Dracula again, I think there's definitely those overtones when Gina rises. Which is a fantastic scene.
It is. The censors got it, and it was mentioned in the censors reports. You really can't emphasize this too much.
Yeah.
Well, and dumb old me, you know, I'm watching it, and I'm never once thinking that. I'm thinking she's just trying to get close enough to bite her. You know, I'm not really thinking about it.
You can't say there's no lesbianism in the vampire lovers either.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the bat?
Alistair's bat or the Dracula bat?
We're either one of them. I mean,
they're the same bat. They're
actually the same bat.
I don't know how Al got that bat.
And it's too bad the guy dangling it up and down on the string didn't get a credit.
I know.
To be honest, the only bats I've ever seen in the earlier films was probably the original Dracula. Anything I saw after that, they all look bad, unless they were animated like Abbott Costello made Frankenstein.
Well, Cushing plays it hard straight when he fights it.
He does.
I mean,
oh my goodness!
Give it all you've got.
Something you could just take a broomstick and knock it out of the air. It's moving so slow.
Well, the idea that the vampire could change into a bat in Dracula, you couldn't.
Yes.
And Anthony Hines said he and Jimmy Sangster, we didn't like the idea of magic, that if you're in trouble, you just change into a bat and fly away. But,
right. Well, in what is it in Son of Dracula? I think Chaney changes into a bat, doesn't he? But it's that's a really bad one. But he also does this smoke migration thing where he just kind of goes under doors, or there's other times where he just kind of fades into a room. I don't know how he got there. He doesn't fly in, he doesn't smoke in or anything. And in Return of Dracula, it's kind of the smoke thing, but he also is I mean, it's obviously a dog, but it's a large white dog, and it's a really good dog fight. You know, when he's fighting the one character on the ground. Eats him, kills him, I think.
I have go ahead, Alistair.
Oh no, it's fine, Daphne. I was just going to say, and while we're talking about magic in this particular film, there's a scene that I think a long time ago I sort of accepted that I love Hammer films, but they're probably never actually going to frighten me. They're more sort of gothic adventures that get the blood stirring. However, that scene with the padlocks dropping off Gina's coffin actually just sends shivers down my spine. And that's
I'm sorry, that's magic.
That is magic. Yes, that's a very overt sort of magical scene, and creepy as hell.
It was. I was actually, especially the first time I saw this, actually felt horror at these ladies when they rose from the grave and came out of their coffin, and then had that smile with the fang. It was horrifying.
And of course, this is our tie-in of all things to the Matrix films. I don't know if you guys remember or not, but the first Matrix sequel in 2003, The Matrix Reloaded, had this scene playing in the background.
Yeah.
And probably just as well, because it turned out to be the best thing about the film. But
that's right. That's why the composer had some credit for Matrix, is that?
Is that why? Right.
Well,
but you know, it was
the only one to get residuals year after year. Actors, directors, once they make it, the composers through their contract with the union, they get residual money every time it's played. James Bernard said at the end, he got checks.
Excellent.
Cool.
You mentioned about being scared. I've never been scared by any of these. I have to go back to, it's Fire Banes from Outer Space, Forbidden Planet, Killer Shrews, and Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. These were all mid-50s for me. And those scared me. And after that, it's like Chad said, no, you really don't get scared anymore. You just kind of get caught up in them.
Yeah, you find other things to enjoy.
The original Dracula scared me. Just based on when I watched it, I think. But can we talk about the story a little bit? Because wasn't this originally called Disciples of Dracula? Was that Sangster's first?
Yeah, something like that.
Which sort of explains why there wasn't a Dracula. But,
well, they wanted a Dracula, and then and who knows why Christopher Lee never came back. I mean, I've heard so many stories. I have absolutely no idea what the truth is. But then they said, okay, we need a Dracula film without Dracula. And, Peter Bryan was a friend of Anthony Hines, and Bryan had cancer, and he tried to give him work. And Edward Percy brought in some stuff for Cushing because he'd written for Cushing. And then Anthony Hines kind of all pulled it together or took it apart, depending how you look at it. I've never seen a Hammer film with so many writers.
Yeah.
Unusual. I did like the idea of Dracula being dead, and which he'd later come back in AD, but the Dracula cult, you know, even though Dracula was dead, this continues on. And it would have been cool to see a continuation of this series with Peter Cushing as Van Helsing.
Talk about it. I don't know why, but if you know, Cushing didn't do any horror films for several years after that. His stuff was like Captain Clegg and the one set where what was the one set in the bank with
Cash on Demand? Cash on Demand?
Yes. And he wasn't doing horror films for several years. It's like he said, maybe I need to get away from these. Had to go to when he did Frankenstein again in '63 and Eva Frankenstein the Gorgon.
Well, it's kind of what Fisher did too, right? I mean, he kind of got away and was doing these. He and Sangster doing these psychological dramas, like
Sangster got away from it. Fisher basically would take any job that came his way, and give it his best. He liked to work. And he had that period after Curse of Phantom of the Opera where he didn't work for Hammer for 2 years. He worked in Germany and did a couple cheap Robert Lippert films because Hammer was renovating Bray Studios and they really didn't have anything for him.
Was that The Horror of It All? Was that one of the Lippert films?
Yep, and The Earth Dies Screaming.
Which was had Andre Melly in it and was written by Ray Russell.
Yep. I have an autographed photo of that from Pat Boone, so there.
Oh, that's crazy. Pat Boone.
So there.
Autographs are big. Horror films can be fun.
Yeah.
We can't pop.
That sounds so awesome.
Jeff, speaking of the horror of it all, do you happen to have a screenshot of that Andre Melly publicity photograph from that film? I think where she's sort of got a hand on her face and she's glaring. Oh, it's amazing. Really amazing.
Yeah.
We used to have a 20th Century Fox cable network, and they showed it. So now that they're owned by Disney, it'll probably never get shown again.
Well, you have to mention.
I just kind of say real quick about the censor thing, because in issue 14, Little Shoppe of Horrors.
Nice.
They have a section that says it's the reader's report. And talking about that scene, they say on page 58, by taking the blood of his own mother, he has broken the laws even of the damned, i.e., your handsome Dracula seems to have had a slight Oedipus complex and an already complex Dracula complex. Page 77, Gina, a village girl turned vampire, seems to have become a weensy bit of a lesbian. She says to Marianne, a real ninny, my darling, you haven't forgotten your little Gina. Put your arms around me, please. Hug me. I want to kiss you. Please be kind to me. Say you'll forgive me for letting him love me. Girlish talk, perhaps. They have burnt toast in their dorm together. But what next? Dracula, the homosexual vampire? Otherwise, this seems to me to be the sort of goulash which would be screamingly funny if done and really well cooked up by the goons. That's so funny.
So this is
ridiculous and hilarious.
That's a censorship report?
That was the British censorship report, yeah.
Oh my God.
I got the impression the
having toast in their dorm room.
Never actually went to movies.
Euphemism.
I know. It's like
Yes.
I think he may
Have
be
you ever had
projecting.
toast
I'm
in
not
your
sure.
dorm room together? True test.
Anyway, sorry. I just thought that was so funny.
No,
That's
I'm gonna
great.
go back and look for it.
One of the things we do in the magazine is I don't read it. So I actually go back and
You've seen it so many
when
times.
you're doing it,
right?
you're not actually reading. You're trying to make sure you didn't make a lot of mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually drug this out for 20-some years ago, and I was sitting reading before the show started.
Well, and there's so much stuff in it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bet. You probably run into the same. I haven't written all that much, but there's stuff I have written, reviews and things, and I go back and read it and think, did I write that? I hadn't done it. That's not me. It's but we need to give a nod to Michael Ripper there on the top.
Oh yes.
The coachman, he's not on long, but he definitely is memorable.
Yeah.
And then he takes a bribe from the character that I got no idea who he was.
Yeah.
Might have been part of that story change, I guess. I assume he's the guy that dragged the log out in the road, and then when they stop to move it, he jumps on the back of the coach. And then when they get there, he pays Michael Ripper to leave early. And then we never see him again, I guess. Well, he walks into the inn once.
The original script. He was
really?
the main character in the first script.
Wow. Well, this guy on the bottom, and I don't want to confuse people. That's Fred Johnson. He plays the priest, the local priest. But
I loved him, and I loved this character. And just kind of, I thought he did a great job as this character. And he has the awesomest sideburns and comeback. But I just thought he was great. Like he showed real care for his parishioners, but he also was like, hanging out at the inn and having soup. But I really liked him. He was fun.
If they had done more Van Helsing films, I'd like to have seen him come back, maybe as a sidekick or occasional companion.
Yeah. Did you hear the religious music when he said, "Yes"? Van Cushing, Cushing introduced himself, and the music is just something out of a church choir. Oh, thank God for her.
No, it'd be great, Alistair, to have because this guy knew to call Van Helsing. I got to call you out here, So
who are you gonna call?
That would be great. Yeah, Van Helsing.
Van Helsing. Daphne, I was wondering if it might seem familiar to you as well that this is the second time in as many months that we've talked about a mysterious and silent man in black in a Hammer film who's given a big entrance but doesn't actually seem to do anything to affect the rest of the movie.
I thought that exact same thing. I thought, is this the same guy? And he just kind of goes from town to town
and not do anything.
Not doing anything, but just walks in and takes over for a bit, and then
on coaches.
Black.
Yeah,
we're referring to the Vampire Lovers, as you probably guessed. Yeah.
He hitches rides on coaches and then makes startling entrances into bars. Looks around
knowingly.
Shuts up.
Yeah.
Turns around and walks out.
It would have been nice for somebody to make some kind of reference to he works for the Baroness and
yeah,
he does this a lot.
Right.
As it stands,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that doggone Man in Black again.
Get out of here.
Get out of here, you bum.
Well, second Man in Black became Dracula in Hong Kong, so there you go.
You know, see, there's this whole other other thing we don't know anything about.
Well, I'm not sure how this is going to play, but this is here's our ending.
Oh man, yeah.
That's so
kind of hard to see. It's very dark, but then I found this. I hope this will work. Yep, that wasn't it. This is it.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
just a GIF.
Yeah,
excellent.
Oh,
his
and I left
makeup
out.
was so awesome.
I left these. Did I leave these out?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was gruesome.
That was really gruesome. Yeah.
After he'd been doused.
I was not expecting that because it hasn't really had a lot of like really intense makeup. And then all of a sudden his face was like that. That was awesome.
Did you guys notice even Cushing, when he threw the holy water, he made a sign of the cross?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. Yes. A cross and down his face.
What's neat about
what he's doing.
The films that made for Universal had higher budgets. Like this is $120,000, where like Dracula's 80 and the Columbia films are a lot lower, but they got to shoot at night. They didn't have to do day for night. The end of Curse of the Werewolf is at night. And it makes such a difference when it's photographed at night.
Sure does.
You know, I didn't realize that, but you're absolutely right. I mean, it looks fantastic at night.
But when the budgets go down, it's all day for night. You got to pay overtime, and you can't shoot early the next day if you shoot at night.
Well, it's amazing the quality and the richness of the movie based on the budget. You know, it's in relation to the budget. It's incredible what they were able to do. I'm racking my brain. Al, you said something a couple minutes ago that I was going to fill in around the edges on, and I don't even remember.
Was I talking about Andre Melly as Gina again? I mean, maybe you should shut me down.
He's going on about Gina again.
Hey, I met Andre Melly, but she's with her husband.
Oh, yeah.
Well, when you're 10 years old watching it, you don't really care.
I get it.
No.
Well, her husband was Austin Quiddick from Revenge of Frankenstein, the so-called hunchback.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
Very cool.
That's all connected.
So let's. I feel like we could talk about this a lot more. So if there's anything you wanted to talk about that you haven't had a chance to talk about, now's the time.
Okay. Once again, I really just wanted to emphasize the whole scene of Gina coming out of the coffin, because what really adds to it as well is the sound of the horses in the background, obviously because it's the stable.
Yeah.
And you can hear them becoming more and more restless. And the whole scene just has this inexorable feeling that you're building to something, which it definitely does. And in the novel, in the original novel of Salem's Lot, there's a similar scene the first time a female vampire rises. And it's written in such a way that it seems to have a direct callback to this particular scene, and it just makes me wonder if maybe Stephen King saw this movie and it started.
I'm sure he did.
He talked very positive about it in that kind of semi-autobiographical book he wrote himself.
Yes.
Is that the? Well, he has that one called Dance Macabre where he goes over horror literature and movies over the last 30 years, like 50 to 80.
Say, good read. Yeah.
What's interesting reading Little Shop is Anthony Hines saying the first half of Brides of Dracula is perhaps the best thing we ever did at Hammer. It absolutely is about as perfect a gothic horror movie as you could have. Whatever gothic means, that's just what it feels like.
Right.
Yeah. It's not a very long film. It's an hour and 25 minutes, and it just, the story just keeps pushing along, you know, at a pretty good pace. And so it's never boring. It's never, you know, there's never any boring parts that I would have to fast forward through, like I would a lot of other movies. But it's just a great entry into a vampire, a Hammer film, you know. And I loved the Brides. I loved Peter Cushing in this. It was just so cool to see him fight. And I will admit, I did not care for it not having Christopher Lee in it at first, but over the years of watching it, I've come to really love this film, and I always had that hope that they would keep on with this Van Helsing fighting other vampires, just going around the world or whatever was needing to be done.
Kind of like Captain Kronos. Fighting vampires throughout time.
Yeah.
What is it? Cushing is like a half hour into the film before he shows up?
Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah.
I think, and you don't feel it either. I mean, I didn't. I'm like, with a good story.
Well, like you say, the women characters were so strong; they absolutely carry the whole story along.
Great.
And they played a role in every single section too, like in the inn, at the Baroness's place, at the school. You know, they were an integral part of the story.
The lasting influence of this film as well, in an unexpected way, the castle that you see at the beginning of many Hammer films is the Shadow Minster. And I realized that when I was doing my book, Infogothic, because it's unauthorized, I couldn't use the Hammer logo. So I thought, well, what's something else that Hammer always used, which is very iconic? And then I realized, well, it's got to be that castle. And I spent ages and ages trying to render it, trying to draw it, could never find any good reference. And then belatedly, I realized if I'd only rewatched Brides of Dracula, there's plenty of beautiful shots of the Shadow Monster.
So, got a photograph there in 1980 at the HammerCon in London. And a friend of mine bought the model, and I'm standing by it because it was used in Kiss of the Vampire too.
Yes.
And
wow,
I think that would have been cool to haul back to the United States. Yeah, it would.
Well, a quick comment about the girls' school, Herr Lang and Frau Lang. I got a kick out of them because Herr Lang was like, "This is the way it is. These are my rules. You will have no followers. You will have no followers." And then as soon as he was out of the room, she did whatever she wanted to.
Whatever.
Whatever. Well, the guy playing Herr Lang apparently was recommended by Peter Cushing because in the 1940s, apparently he gave Cushing jobs in place when he needed it. He did the job wonderful, but he returned the favor.
Right.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, he had a pretty decent career too, 100 and some credits in IMDb. I did not go through them, but he was recognizable as an English actor. Well, okay.
I kind of interrupted us, I think, probably when we were talking about David Peel, but and you kind of said this, Jeff, but he just did really well in this movie, and it is a shame that we don't get to see him in lots of roles. And it's kind of like interesting with doing some of the older movies, you know, it's like people do these amazing acting jobs, make these great movies, and then you don't see him again, and you just wonder, gosh, I wonder, you know, what else they could have done or what it would be like, you know. Obviously it wasn't his interest, but I just thought he was very, very good in this movie. At first I didn't really understand what you meant, Richard, by Dick, by saying, you know, that this maybe isn't the first one you'd recommend for someone who hadn't seen a Hammer film. But I really see that now after kind of going over and talking about this movie, because it does cover so much of what is Hammer and what you can't always put your finger on that when you would describe a Hammer movie. You know, for me, lots of stuff with Hammer, it's like, it's this, all the adjectives I can come up with are just like lush, you know. I mean, it's like that doesn't help you. But when you look at it, it's amazing.
If you're going to a younger person, you almost have to have some action or something going on, because that's what they're used to in the Marvel universe and that. And Horror of Dracula, it delivers all the way through.
Absolutely.
It's why I think Dracula's Risen from the Grave was such a huge hit. I mean, you get staked in there, and he pitches off into the battlement. He gets impaled on a cross.
Yeah,
there weren't many Hammer films that had scenes like that. And if you're going to attract a younger audience to expand on it, you have to catch their interest, at least the initial film.
Yep. And I think that's a really good point. And after thinking about more of like kind of what would be a good Hammer movie, I do see now that this would be an excellent one, just because of, for me, like from when we were talking about the craftsmanship, it's like you just look at the quality of all this stuff and you just think, wow, this is Hammer. And it's used in different movies. You see that, you see some of the same actors. And I don't know, it just, I feel like you get another level of, it makes me feel a little bit closer to the folks who like made this, studio in this movie. I feel like you get to see their mark a little bit more when you kind of become a little bit more familiar and say, oh yeah, that's that or whatever. It adds another layer that I really appreciate when watching movies and stuff.
Yeah. Everything came together. It's the perfect amalgamation of what we think of as Hammer.
I think of that a lot with really movies that are really memorable, that they're like a melding of all the pieces. They just had the right people at the right time doing putting these things in. I gotta say though, this does not feel like a good match for a double bill with the Leech Woman.
What would be?
I don't know.
I don't know. We've seen a few that could be
alligator people, maybe, or Lost Woman.
It shows you how pathetic the films that were actually being made on the Universal lot were in 1960.
Yeah.
All right.
My oldest boy and my grandkids, their go-to film is Quatermass in the Pit. The intelligence of that is they just keep wanting to go back and back to that.
Yeah. We got to do the other Quatermass ones. Yeah. Sorry, Chad.
I can't blame them for wanting
No,
to do that. I love Quatermass.
Oh man,
I'd go for some Quatermass now if they didn't get too overboard with CGI.
Yeah,
the whole science investigator thing. All right. Well, thank you guys so much.
Well, thank you
for spending the time with us.
Nice seeing all of you.
It's like this probably it's been a dream of mine to get the two of you together on a show. So
thank you.
I got 3 more issues of Little Shop to go before I pack it in, and Alistair will be in all 3 of them. So
thank you. Thank you.
What issue was your Barbara Shelley piece in, Alistair? Or was that coming up? Was that?
Ooh, that was some time ago.
Was it?
Yeah, I can't remember which one.
Was that in Little Shop? About when the guy who was like number 46, I believe. I think.
Okay.
I think it's for a Dracula issue. Yeah.
Okay, I got to try to find that because I was looking for it today and I couldn't remember.
I can't remember my wife's anniversary or birthday, but I can remember that.
Well done.
So yeah, Dick was with us last year for Horror of Dracula, and Alistair was with us for Cycle of the Werewolf. Probably 2 years ago.
I think it was Curse.
Yeah,
yes.
Curse of the Werewolf.
Curse of the Werewolf. I do that all the time. I'm so proud of myself, and but I didn't say Wolfman.
Have you guys ever done the Monster and the Girl?
No.
I've been watching these little short films on the show, the Universal stuff. Well, it's a Paramount film, but Universal wants to write. And I think, it's going to be like that Republic film, the Monster. This thing is unbelievably good.
Oh, wow.
The Monster and the Girl?
Yes, it's got a wonderful group. Stuart Heisler directed, a wonderful group of Paramount character actors. The ape in this thing, the design is terrific. It is... I listened to the commentary by Tom Weaver, and I watched it. this is really good. How did I never know about this?
Wow.
Huh.
It's like 1940, 1941 Paramount.
There's a recommendation.
Yeah.
We're always looking for 40s because there's not, you know, there's so many poverty row films, and then it's that's got a 2. What am I looking at? There's one from 1953.
This would have been like 40, 41. It was,
okay.
I think, a double bill with Basil Rathbone and the Mad Scientist or something, they said. Or the Mad Doctor. But it's beautifully done, wonderfully shot, terrific acted.
All righty. We are doing, so I did, you know, I like to make lists. So we have done Hammer films then in classic era. We've done The Curse of Frankenstein, The Gorgon, Nightmare, The Curse of the Werewolf, The Mummy, Quatermass in the Pit, Rasputin, Horror of Dracula, and now Brides of Dracula.
Yeah.
That's a good group of films.
Really is.
Well, there's a lot more to go through too. So thanks again, guys. Dick, I appreciate you. And I'm really looking forward to grabbing Witches, Bitches, and Banshees.
Me too.
Love the title.
Boy, it's been a long haul.
Yeah, I'll bet. And Al, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure. So great to see you guys.
It is. It's great to see you guys again.
Take care of your wife, Al. You're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode. But every 2 weeks, we'll focus on a specific film released between 1920 and 1969. Next up is one chosen by our next guest host, Ralph Miller, special effects artist from the 80s. And he has chosen The Brainiac from 1962.
Mex horror. You can't go wrong.
A Mexican film. Whitney's not here, and we're doing a Mexican film. I don't know what's up with that.
Damn.
But we've done a bunch of them in the last year, and I've really enjoyed all of them.
Yeah.
So,
is this the movie based on my life story?
Well,
I get confused sometimes.
It is
a lookalike. It's a lookalike character. Anyway. So yeah, join us for that. Again, plenty of ways to stay in touch. Please make comments on the Gruesome Magazine YouTube channel, or send emails to feedback@gruesomemagazine.com. Check out our Facebook group, Gruesome Magazine's HNR and DOH podcast Facebook group. We are, if you haven't been around back for a while, Horror News Radio is fired back up and is going on a regular basis. They run about 30-40 minutes of horror news every week, and it usually goes live on Tuesday, I think, is when it's usually published. Yeah. So get info on new trailers, casting, and et cetera, stuff like that. And our next 70s is going to be it's not on this other podcast, but Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
Staying in the Hammer realm here.
Brilliant.
And you can also tell folks about Hammerama and their version of Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. They did an awesome episode.
Oh, did you guys do it? Did you guys do it?
Yes, yes. We
gotta check it out. I missed the first few.
We were very fortunate. Steve had just spoken to Martin Beswick, so we were able to drop a little bit of that interview into the episode as well. So that gives us a little bit of authenticity.
Oh,
maybe.
Cool.
Yeah. So check out the Diecast movie podcast with Steve Turek. And Hammer, the Hammerama is a sort of a sub-series of that podcast, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
But lots of other good stuff there. And he's always going to conventions and always interviewing people. It amazes me how many interviews he does. So anyway, catch us again here in 2 weeks for another great horror movie of the classic eras. Only decades of horror can do it. Say goodnight, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Wow.
Good night, everybody.
Gruesome Magazine.